Breaking right now, high drama on the high seas. Personnel from the frigate HMCS Winnipeg have just boarded that ship that's carrying 490 Tamil migrants just as the ship entered Canadian waters. The Public Safety Minister, Vic Taves, has just held a news conference confirming the boarding, claiming that the boat carries suspected human smugglers and suspected terrorists. Let me read you exactly part of what the minister just released to the public. He says human smugglers and human traffickers are now watching Canada's response to judge whether or not they can continue to take advantage of us. I cannot comment on operational matters, but what I can say is that we will send a message loud and clear to other criminals. If you do this, then you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. All right, that's part of the statement just released at moments ago by the Minister of Public Safety. Now, let me tell you, there are still no confirmed reports of the status and the condition of the people, the 490 people on board that ship. But as we just heard, authorities are concerned about the possible presence of members of the Tamil Tigers, that's independent fighters crushed by the Sri Lankan army, but still widely considered, certainly by Canada, to be a terrorist threat. Are the migrants legitimate refugees? Are they clandestine terrorists? Are they victims of illicit human smuggling? And is Canada obliged to take them in? What are the options here? Let me start now with the Sri Lankan High Commissioner. She's with me now, Chitrangani Wajaswara. Thank you so much, High Commissioner, for being here. You've just heard the latest report of what's happening. What's your response with how the Canadian government should be responding to this incoming ship of migrant Tamils?
Yes, as you know, this is not the first ship. This is the second ship. First ship came in October with 76 illegal immigrants, and this ship, which has just come into Canadian waters, is what we say is a human smuggling operation, which also includes Tamil Tiger terrorists, Tamil Tigers who have been fighting the war in Sri Lanka.
What evidence is that? Because the Canadian public has not seen any evidence of that. What evidence have you provided, your government provided, to the Canadian government that the people on board are suspected human smugglers or suspected terrorists? Again, because we don't know, because their cases have not been examined by our refugee board.
Yes, this is not a new thing. For the last 3 months, nearly 3 months, we have been, the government of Sri Lanka at different levels, have been speaking to the Canadians as well as to the others as well. As you know, since May, this ship has been in Asian waters around Thailand earlier, and they were heading towards Australia, and then at a certain point they decided to change course and come to Canada. So we have been talking to the Canadians as well at different levels, and certain information has been exchanged between the two governments.
You know, you mentioned the other ship. Back in October, a ship bearing 76 Tamil migrants came here. Now, again, there were accusations that these people were possible terrorists, possible human smugglers. They landed, they were held in detention, but all of those 76 have now been released and their cases are being processed. Why should we not follow the exact same formula this time that we followed in October?
Well, I think it was in the public domain. It was reported in the, I think, National Post and some other newspapers as well, where they are quoting extracts of a report put out by the CBC, the Canadian Border Services Agency, where they suspected that about 25 of the 76 would have had links to the LTTE. And of course the case is still going on. We cannot just dismiss and say they are not LTTE. The case is still on, and this is what we say. This is what the government of Sri Lanka says.
Now, the government of Sri Lanka and the Canadian government seem to be acting closely on this in terms of what you want to see happening. There's an investigation going on, but I want to show you what Michael Ignatieff, the leader of the Liberal Party, had to say about the situation today, and I want to show our viewers as well. Take a look.
We're aware that there is a terrorist issue here. We take the national security of our country seriously. We take the national security of Sri Lanka seriously. But these people have been on the high seas for I don't know how long. They have a right to have individual refugee determination, and if they're found to have suspect or difficult past, and that has to be independently established. If we find that there are security risks, then they have to be sent home.
Now, I know the audio was a little tricky. Mr. Ignatievson Iqaluit, and he was on a runway there, but
Right.
what he's saying is, look, they have the right to individual hearings for each of the 490 people on board the ship. If they're found to be smugglers or terrorists, there will be consequences. But the law requires that they get an individual hearing. What's wrong with that?
Well, I don't want to comment on the Canadian laws and regulations and the Canadian refugee law. So, I mean, once they land here, they come under the Canadian laws and regulations, and you're quite free to go through the normal procedures. But this is what we say, what the government of Sri Lanka says, because as you know, we went through a very difficult period, nearly 30 years of conflict, 30 years of war with this terrorist group, the Tamil Tigers of Tamil Eelam. And they, as you know, of course we managed to defeat them last May, and there is no LTT anymore in Sri Lanka. There is no fighting in Sri Lanka, no war. But they had a very sophisticated, very well organized officers network outside the country, including in Canada. And that network is still intact.
But the question is, how do we know that all people on board that ship, been on the high seas now for 4 months, reports that many people may be sick on that ship, may have links to the Tamil Tigers? Again, let me just point out a quotation I'll show our viewers as well, what Olivia Chow from the NDP has to say. Her view on this unfolding situation is right now. Let me show our viewers.
Do remember that some of these refugees claimants may be in terrible health. They have endured a long journey. Let's make sure they're safe.
So that's Olivia Chow saying they've
Yes.
been on. They may be in terrible health. Why then, given that situation, given that we don't know if all of the people on board or any of them, frankly, have these links, why would you advise the Canadian government to turn this boat away? What about the people that could be suffering on board?
Well, what we say is this is a criminal activity. Human smuggling is a criminal activity, and what we say is this has been organized by this Tamil, the Tiger group, who were very active in Asia, especially to purchase arms, explosives for the movement, and they were sending these arms to Sri Lanka to keep the war going. And whoever who is on board, this is a secret operation. You know, they don't announce and say we are getting on board the ship. There is no list of the passengers. So those who are on board should also have some sort of links with the organization.
But you know,
Otherwise
the Tamil community here, and it's the biggest Tamil community outside of Sri Lanka. I think there's almost 250,000 Tamils living in Canada. They say, where are these people supposed to go? There is no home for them anymore. For many of them, they say the home is behind a barbed wire fence, that life for them in Sri Lanka is not good. And they claiming legitimate refugee status because when the conflict ended in 2009 of May, many of the Tamils say they are suffering now in Sri Lanka, and therefore they need refugee status. That's the other side of this. What's your response to that?
No, I don't accept that, because there are Tamils living in Sri Lanka, and of course during the war there were 300,000 civilians who were kept as hostages, as a shield by this movement, and they came across to the government side, and they were of course kept in welfare camps. And most of them are out now. We still have about 30,000 of them who are in welfare camps, being looked after, provided housing, food, everything to them. And then there are Sri Lankans living in Canada, Sri Lankan Tamils who are living in Canada, and they are breathing a sigh of relief that the war is over and they can get on with their lives. They don't have to give their children as child soldiers to the movement.
So you think the boat should go right back to Sri Lanka?
If they are Sri Lankans, we are prepared to accept them in Sri Lanka.
High Commissioner to Canada for Sri Lanka, Chitrangani Wajaswara, always good to see you. You've been on before. Welcome back again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.